You know, last week when it seemed that the polls couldn't possibly get any worse for President Biden and congressional Democrats? Well, that was last week. An ABC News Washington Post poll, so you know it's not slanted toward Republicans, found that Biden's approval rating dropped 3 points to 41%, and his disapproval rating is up 2 points to 53%. But that's not even the worst news for the Democrats. In the generic congressional poll, voters preferred a Republican over a Democrat by a staggering 10 points, 51 to 41%. I don't recall ever seeing a lead that was that high for Republicans, especially not in a mainstream media poll. But any Democrats reading this might want to grab the Tums and sit down for the next part. In the generic congressional poll of 8 battleground states, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, New Hampshire, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, voters prefer a Republican over a Democrat by 23 points, 58 to 35%. I'm pretty sure I don't need to remind you that polls this far out should be taken with a pillar of salt, so don't get complacent. Work and volunteer, donate, campaign, drive people to the voting polls with you. In short, do everything you can to ensure that when the final vote comes in, it's well beyond the margin of fraud, and it makes current polls look like a severe understatement of GOP support. Now, in the spirit of bipartisanship, I also offer this word of cautious advice to congressional Democrats. You might want to start updating your resumes. That way you might be able to get a good paying lobbyist job. The Democrats in the mainstream media, they're in trouble too. Unsurprisingly, they're in trouble. Time and again, they've completely squandered the public's trust. They've not only gotten major stories completely wrong over and over again, but their false narratives always favor the Democrats and the left, and virtually no one is fooled by it anymore. When called on their politically motivated lies, they just ignore the truth, quietly issue corrections that nobody sees, or worst of all, they edit stories in their archives to erase their own mistakes, as the Washington Post just did with Russiagate. And nobody ever pays a price for it. As British-American political commentator Andrew Sullivan notes, Rachel Maddow pushed wild Russia collusion conspiracy theories for years. And instead of being fired and never allowed near any position of journalistic responsibility again, she just got promoted. And the man who first published the Russian dossier, Ben Smith, he was made the media columnist for the New York Times. Being at heart still a liberal, Sullivan has to bash Trump a little, even in slamming the anti-Trump media, because he said, quote, "We need facts and objectivity more than ever. Trump showed that," end quote. I'd argue that the media showed that with their blatant bias and reflexive need to refute every single thing Donald Trump said, including if he said good morning. Yet Sullivan is forced to admit Trump was right in the end about the dodgy dossier. He was right about the duped FBI's original overreach, and the mass media, Rachel Maddow, chief among them, were wrong. I would post that he was also right about a whole lot of other things than that, from gas prices to border security to the Middle East to the growing threat of China. We're now living the dire consequences of reversing all of Donald Trump's policies that we were assured were based on falsehoods. Again, as a good liberal, Sullivan is going through the same withdrawal pains as many Americans who are finally waking up to just how badly they've been duped. He admits he still relies on the mainstream media for so much, still reading the New York Times first thing in the morning. In his words, "I don't want to feel as if everything I read is basically tilted through wish fulfillment, narrative proving, and ideology. But with this kind of record, how can I not?" Well, welcome to my world, Andrew. My staff and I are also forced to read that stuff every day. But we kind of consider it our duty to sift through it and separate any tiny nuggets of truth from the giant pile of horse manure. Be honest, it's a lousy job. But as Mike Rowe sometimes says, somebody's got to do it. If you'd like to join us here in the light, we're happy to have you. Now, on a related note, it's rumored that in a desperate attempt to drag CNN's ratings out of the sub-basement after their merger with Warner Media is complete, many of the current on-air talents, they're going to be fired. And brace yourself. This is really radical. CNN will try being an actual 24-hour news channel. Oh, I know it's a crazy idea, but it just might work. Now, if you want to make sure you don't go as crazy as the left, there's an easy solution. Just hit the subscribe button below and the notification bell next to it. Leave a like and a comment while you're at it, and be sure to join me this Friday for a live stream. If you want more of my news analysis and commentary, you can sign up for my newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. It's totally free. You'll never get charged for it. It comes directly to your email. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.